let's take a look at some info and charts on Band for Brave New Coin. So Band is like Link, a decentralized oracle. They say they're secure, scalable, blockchain agnostic, cross-chain, real-world data aggregation, APIs to smart contracts, a useful service, undoubtedly. As DeFi and DeFi Plus stuff comes online, we're going to see more and more demand for stuff like this. Here they're alluding to not only just price information, weather information, other gambling stuff. They talk about flights somewhere down here. Just any sort of real-time data that needs to be distributed quickly. Sports events, weather, whatever. Kind of anything. But I can imagine a world where you get flight insurance through DeFi applications and you need oracles to see, is the flight on time or isn't it? Or you're betting on some sports stuff. There are ways you can imagine the need for this type of thing. Whether or not that actually materializes and there's demand for it is obviously remains to be seen, but you can use your imagination and go pretty wild with API data aggregation with some sort of smart contract component. They have various validator nodes I'll discuss briefly, but they have their own chain, which I guess I didn't realize. And it appears as though the tokens themselves can be swapped pretty freely between ERC20 and the Band chain. And they did put out a roadmap. Here's the ETH gas cost, block hash, flight status, all sorts of stuff. They did put out a roadmap, here we go, a while back. And you can see they already swapped the tokens. And it looks as though they swap the tokens back and forth kind of as needed. And you can see where we are in the roadmap and eventually where we'll be. Enterprise software, that's like pie in the sky goal, but that's living the dream as far as an oracle is concerned. And looking at their Twitter account, they were highlighting a large amount of requests, a growing amount of oracle requests, API calls, or whatever you want to consider them as. Partnerships, my favorite. That's my favorite term for any project. Look at all these partnerships. I mean, Link is the king of partnerships, right? Kind of meaningless PR stuff at the end of the day for the token. Great for the company, not so much for the token. So there's development, there's things happening. This isn't like a dead project that's just squandering its resources by any means, as far as I can tell. Here's the total requests for Band data or data on Band oracles through Band, that sort of thing. Up and to the right, growth, growth, growth. That's what you want to see if you are bullish on anything. So it makes sense. Again, the reason I look at fundamentals is to see, do the technicals align or not? Should I care, right? And it looks as though there's some sort of low groundswell for Band type stuff, at least in the near term. If you look at the total validators, they have 69 total with an inflation rate of 11%. And you can go through and look at all the validators here, similar to any proof of stake type network, Tezos, EOS, very similar. From the 1,000-foot view, you've got all these validators. People can put their votes behind them, their tokens behind them. And then when there's a governance issue, they can vote on changes kind of through a representative democracy. That's my baseline understanding of all this proof of stake stuff. So it's still early days for Band. They're developing, they're doing things. I wouldn't say there isn't some specific project or entity where I can point to and say Band does that much better than Link. Or even in Link's case, I couldn't necessarily point to anything specifically. It's all just like plumbing under the hood stuff. So it's early, things are happening. DeFi, DeFi Plus, DeFi adjacent, smart contracts, buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. But Link has been an integral part of DeFi, and it makes sense that there's a competitor, if you can view it as a competitor, and or another entity that does other stuff that Link may not do. Looking at Band protocol, just Google Trends, which I assume is the Band we're talking about in the video, because there's no data past, there's really no data until 2020. So I think we're good to go as far as, is this the Band we're talking about here? And Google Trends have been mainly muted, but are rising. And they're at a multi-month high. Basically second all-time high since August 2020. It makes sense. Price is up, prices at all-time highs. When you see price at all-time highs and Google Trends not following, that's a bit of a concern, because that points to a bearish divergence. Almost always you're going to see some sort of search interest from new people getting in or people who've noticed this project that's up 20% or at all-time highs, and there's tweets and there's all this stuff to support searches for, in this case, band. If we switch to technicals, unlike a lot of this DeFi stuff, band actually looks really good as far as bullish continuation expectations. I mean, some of this stuff is ranging and sideways. Band is also sideways, but it's coming off a revisit, a three-peat, if you will, of all-time highs. And collectively, I can see this as a potential cup and handle bullish continuation pattern. A few months ago, it had this inverted head and shoulders, which kind of had a fake out breakdown, ended up breaking up. Then you had this reconsolidation here, and now it's trying to figure itself out still. Price-wise, but it's sitting on the R1 yearly pivot. It's sitting at an old all-time high. The 50 and the 200 aren't that far away from price. The 50 and the 200 aren't extremely spread apart. There isn't some wide mean reversion potential here. All in all, it looks okay relative to everything else. And if you compare it to Link again, some of this stuff moves together. I mean, if we look at the Link BTC, band BTC chart in a second, I can see the echoes of the Link chart. So there's clearly some sort of bot or hive mind that is trading both similarly. Now we'd have to compare the market caps from Band to Link, but Link is at $34 or $30. Band is at 16. Kind of a super crude, low IQ way of thinking about it, but people look at stuff this way, right? So you got to sort of step back and use some silly rationale sometimes. So chart pattern looks good. Where this sits looks good trend-wise. Still bullish 5200. Decent support on VPVR on the way down. Nothing crazy. Volume is semi-flat, kind of rising in the past few days. So I like 27. If this breaks up, that's what I like. There's the measured move up there, 1618 fib, and the R2 yearly pivot. If we look at the daily cloud is also showing a bullish TK recross above the cloud, which should lead to a bullish continuation. This is what you want to see if you are long or expecting a bullish continuation, because it says price has reconsolidated and the MAs effectively have flipped bullish once again. So cloud looks fine. Cloud's flat, which just says there's no momentum. There's no upper thrust, lower thrust. There's nothing going on here. I don't see that as too problematic for the trend because it's above the cloud. So overall, everything looks good there. And if we zoom way out on the 2-day, if you're looking to like buy the dip, I like 12, 13 as far as the Kijun level. And when you zoom out like this, you get rid of all the noise, or try to at least. And again, you can see that cup and handle characteristic on this chart as well. So it's hard to be bearish on the USD chart. Looks good. Looks good trend-wise. Just looks good to me. Band BTC has a bearish 5200 cross on the daily, but it also has this weird algo USD type of inverted head and shoulders diagonally. I mean, it's a mess, right? But it's not there. So if this can break the 200, that's the first step. It'll break the diagonal resistance. That will lead to a 5200 bull cross, and that should lead to bullish continuation. That's my thought process and thinking on this anyway. The Link BTC echoes here. Link also had this weird head and shoulders thing before it broke down, and now it's like, it broke down significantly. It's working on an Adam and Eve, very similar to Link, or to Band here. I keep mixing those two up. So at the very least, this is, either way, call it an Adam and Eve, call it an inverted head and shoulders. There's something here that to me says the probability of bullish reversal is greater than bearish continuation. So I like 50,000 to 60,000 sats on the BTC pair. It'd be interesting to look at this on the ETH pair, on the Link pair, Band to Link, like Monero Zcash, kind of like a head-to-head competitor sort of thing. So I like 50 to 60, and then all-time high retest if we get that opportunity going forward. I don't have any Band right now, but if this breaks out, looks like a good trade to me. And then if you want some real hopium on that 60K plus sat target, this is the 2-day cloud, and looks a lot like ETH did before it broke out to 750. And you'll see this cloud fractal, this cloud setup, and we saw it on BTC in 2016, where you get this big run up and then everything sells off, sort of flattens out, cloud gets super thick, and this is the long trade here. So you're waiting for price to enter the cloud, and you're waiting for a bullish TK cross to back that up. So definitely worth putting on the watch list on the 2-day. It's going to take a while for this to trigger, to play out, whatever. But all of this matches, the daily analysis as well. It all, to me, is pointing to the high likelihood that this performs well against BTC towards the end of the year. And lastly, I'll just mention the Techme Capital ETH BTC fund on Enzyme.finance. It is a non-custodial portfolio management tool. You can look at all the trades, you can look at the AUM, you can look at what I do and when, deposits, all that sort of fun stuff. We have a DeFi fund launching within the week, I believe. Fingers crossed. I believe it's launching within the week, so look out for that. I'll be mentioning that all over the place. So that's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. Hit us up in the comments below. Get us to 10K subs. We're almost there. And happy trading.